We are the Meltdown here to review the latest from Sean Baker. It is Anora, and it's been making waves as the potential picture to beat in the Best Picture race at the Oscars in 2025 for the 2024 movie year. I'm Tim Melton. That is Tyler Johns, and we make up the Meltdown brought to you each and every day by my bookie. Make sure you use promo code next round for that first time deposit bonus there at my bookie. Play anything, anywhere, anytime at my bookie. All right, let's go ahead and now get into our thoughts on Honora because we are divided on this one. Tyler, you
Yeah,
saw my out of the theater
you
reaction.
hurt me, Tim.
You had seen it a couple days before. I saw it here recently, and I found this movie to be incredibly annoying. Just half of the movie is people screaming profanities at one another at the highest pitch volume that their voice can deliver it. Now, if that's your cup of tea, this is that type of screamy, profane movie that maybe you enjoy. For me, I didn't find it to be very much enjoyment around it. I found myself trying to find a Tylenol to take afterwards because I had a headache from all the screaming and the chaos that was happening on screen. Tyler, tell me why I'm wrong about Anora and why everyone else that seems to love it is so right.
All right, so you've seen Uncut Gems, correct?
Yeah.
All right, this movie's described as Pretty Woman meets Uncut Gems. Uncut Gems is a lot of screaming and ranting, people talking over each other. So that's where I'm confused with your review a little bit
I didn't love
because
Uncut Gems.
oh all right then. I thought you were a bigger fan of that than you are then.
No, I saw Uncut Gems one time and also needed a Tylenol after seeing it.
Now, I did debate on dropping Uncut Gems halfway through because it was just so anxiety inducing
Yeah.
with Adam Sandler going, Damani, Damani, Damani.
But you
But
know what I loved about Uncut Gems, and this is not an Uncut Gems review, but I loved the overarching story of Uncut Gems. I
okay.
felt like there was a flow of we were going somewhere. With this one, I really didn't feel like the story was the thing that was keeping us in drive. I felt like it was very much the performances that was keeping us in drive for a majority of the film and the obscene nature of the film. This is one of the more obscene movies that I've seen
hmm
in recent memory, and there's a lot of debauchery that's happening there on screen for sure. I found it to be exhausting, and I'm not saying my way is right and your way is wrong, but I'm just saying my personal experience was this is what's leading the best picture conversation, Honora, and I constantly make the same joke and reference that it's more like annoy you. That's what it should be called. I'm sorry, Tyler. That's the way I feel. Can you imagine our colleague Ryan Brown having to sit through a movie like this? He'd be in misery.
Oh, he would be in pain watching this.
Almost everybody up here would be in misery watching this movie, I think.
I think LT would go for this one.
LT is not the person that was a part of that group, but LT may enjoy this movie. So, Tyler, you weren't overwhelmed by the constant amount of just high pitched, frustrating characters losing their ever loving mind on the screen. You were entertained by that all.
I was entertained by it. Yeah, I loved it. It delivered that chaotic feeling that I went into the movie expecting. Um, I especially liked the henchmen in this movie. I felt like they actually get a real chance to shine,
Yeah.
some real elbow grease put into their character
You thought there was
development.
depth there? I mean, I didn't
More
see any
so
depth.
than in any typical in a typical crime thriller where you got the goons
Yeah.
saying it's like, "What are we going to do, boss?" And that's the extent of their character. It felt like they had personalities and were part of the cast more
Yeah,
so
I
than other
do feel like
henchmen.
there's a momentum to this movie that really sort of stalls out once we get stuck in the house with the henchmen trying to solve this problem.
Now, I do agree with you there. The first act of the movie where they're going to Vegas, they're partying, the relationships blossoming. I felt like that was just a really good pace for plot progression and everything. And then it just starts to drag out in that second half of the movie, but I still enjoyed it.
Sure, and that's fine. I do see some people doing deep psychological dives on all the characters
hmm
and maybe trying to understand more of their motivations. I guess my question is, do you believe in this film Honora is actually ever in love? Like she really is in love with this individual that he's charging $15,000 to spend a week as, the girlfriend of. I just don't know. Some people are chalking this up into a young love story, and then I look at this as it is love for hire, basically. Do you believe her as a character, she's ever actually in love, or do you think she's in love with the lifestyle that this choice would eventually provide? Because if this guy didn't have money, there would be no movie.
I agree. It's not love, it is, the feeling of being wanted and being provided for, I think is what she likes, but not on a personal, intimate level, if you remember the final scene of the movie.
Yeah, and we can get
I
into it. This is
Yeah.
spoiler heavy,
Yeah,
but
I think that final scene just does a lot of heavy lifting for this movie. It really just packs the punch, the emotional punch that this movie needed, and the first half of it just didn't have because that part was more focused on the partying.
I think one thing this film provides is certain coldness when it comes to the intimate activity that we're seeing portrayed on screen.
Yes.
It does sort of
There's no love making scenes.
right. It's very everything's very transactional,
Yes.
even when it's not even hit over the head. It's very subtle how transactional all the different
Mhm.
physical relationships in this movie are, and I think that that is done really well. Okay, and that you get this sense of like there's action going on, but you're very much like, "Ah, this all feels cold and detached, and it just doesn't feel it feels authentically cold and detached." And for that, I give the movie some credit there. And I also think for what it is, Mikey Madison gives a great performance in this role. I just hate the role. I don't want to be around Anora, or she likes to constantly be referred to as Annie, and I couldn't get out of my head Jar Jar Binks going the entire time. And it was very troubling for me because every time it was like, Honora, we need you to. No, it's Annie. And I was like, Jar Jar's going to pop up at any point. It was very terrifying. I think it may be my head was implanted from Heretic, where there's a Jar Jar Binks
There is a
reference.
Jar Jar Binks
And
reference.
maybe having seen those so close together, I just every time, Annie, and I was
Misa,
off
think
put
you
by that.
should get a divorce.
Exactly. And there is a little bit of a legal back and forth. It's obviously this is a movie that is a race to the finish line sort of
Mhm.
movie. The question is, what will be the finish line? Will it be they lived happily ever after, or will it be this thing's being annulled? We've seen the movie, obviously. We know the annulment goes through, and this glimpse at the life that she was going to have, that she just goes on an absolute spree, and she solved all of her problems in one quick solution. When all of that evaporates, that's what leads to that car scene at the end, where there's also that barrier that's broken between
Yep.
client, where she has intimacy issues herself, and she can't
Mhm.
separate what she wants compared to what she has to do in order to be able to be good at her job. It is a complex movie once you start to look deeper and deeper into it, but surface level, I don't enjoy the taste of this movie. I don't enjoy the experience of going to this film and just hearing constant shrieking, and very much when the bodyguards are like, "Will you please stop screaming?" That was me for at least half the film of, can this calm down at all?" And it was just very intense for me. And I overall give it a 2 out of 5. I think it is way overhyped, and I'm hoping that anything, will approach the level of becoming that best picture sort of competition to this, because it's Anora, Anora, Anora everywhere when it comes to what will win at the Oscars. Your thoughts on the overall experience, and what's your final grade here for Anora after having viewed it here in the month of November of 2024?
I think the cinematography was great. Dialogue could have used some work. Not gonna lie, it got a little repetitive, especially in that middle and back half portion. Um, I did just really fall in love with Mikey Madison's performance here. She just knocks it out of the park and gave it everything she had. Um, and I think she gives the character the bit of an emotional depth that is written in and or is not written in rather. And without it, it's a weaker movie. I would give it a 4 to 4.5 out of 5. I think it's a very great movie. I wouldn't call it a front runner for me for Best Picture. For me that's still Sing Sing, but this is a great movie. delivers on that
Right.
anxiety-inducing uncut gems feel, and also sort of a pretty woman story about a dancer being swept off her feet by this rich guy and tries to give her the life that she's always wanted.
And I respect, which is something that, is sort of a toxic word around here, but I respect that Sing Sing is your personal front runner,
Mhm.
but Anora is the one that
No, it's
is
the
the
one that's
political machine.
dominating the conversation
It's
right
the
now.
one to beat, and typically there is that movie that gets out to an early lead where people are looking for any other option. What does candidate B look like? And right now that's not clear. It may be The Brutalist. It may end up being Conclave when it's all said and done. Amelia Perez, who knows if Dune Part 2 has sort of a resurgence to challenge it at all. Sing Sing is a part of that mix. We haven't seen Gladiator 2. I'm starting to see Wicked hype for Best Picture,
No, no, no,
which
no, no.
I agree. I haven't seen a lot
No,
of
no, no,
I
no.
love there, but I'm going to be very fascinated to see how this race ends up shaping up because Honora, while we're talking about it now, it will be an important talking point for months to come as we get closer to those nominations being announced. And I have no doubt Honora will be nominated for Best Picture.
I think out of all the sort of best picture front runners that we've heard about this year, this one, I can see it winning the most, even though it wasn't my personal favorite, because I can see it inspiring a lot of video essay and analysis type videos and essays in the future, just because of the psychological layer and the societal aspects of the movie.
People seem to really love it. I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I really do not like this film. And I think what Sean Baker delivered in something like The Florida Project was so much of a deeper experience than what we got here in Enora. But who knows? Maybe you think I'm absolutely crazy. Maybe you're Team Tyler. Maybe you're Team Tim on this. Have you seen Enora? Let us know what you think. But it is going to be in the conversation for months to come. And I'm glad I don't have to sit through it again anytime soon, at the very least, because it is pain inducing for me. It is really like watching crash reality television. That's what it feels like to me going to the theater to watch a movie like Enora.
So you've never met an Anora in your real life?
I can say with all honesty that I may have had interactions with an Anora type person,
Okay.
and I'm not saying that
Not the profession, the personality. I should clarify.
well, let's get into it here, Tyler. No, I'm saying that I've distanced myself. I would distance myself from 90% of the characters in this movie in real life.
I'm not saying that they'd be great to hang out with, but
I would not.
I'm just saying I've met those people, those kind of people.
The guy who steals the movie for me is the candy store shop owner who just sort
Oh
of like
yeah.
pops in and what's going on? Like he was a quarter of my audience that was like, what's happening on screen right now? They were not prepared for what Anora delivered. So if you want some shock, Anora has it for sure. But I also think it has way too much screaming. No screaming here on this review, somehow,
No,
some way. We just a nice casual conversation
we
about
just disagree.
we just very much disagree on this movie. Which team are you on? Let us know in the comment section below, as we'll have all the different Best Picture nominees reviewed for you throughout the course of this Oscar award season right here on The Meltdown.